All right, we'll be going over chapter 11. The question I really want to pose is perception really reality? Does perception overrule personal judgment? Is how a person really presents themselves truly how they really are being looked at? And does social thinking enable prejudice? So the common phrase that perception covers everything is basically explaining how we interpret things. And what we believe is a major influence on how we comprehend and observe. Basically, what you understand is your reality. Now, perception is defined as processing our senses and becoming aware of the world around us. Basically, relationship, events, any type of other sensory experiences. But according to the text that I read, perception is not always reality. Has anybody ever heard of like the fundamental attribution error? It's like a real thing. It says based on our perception of a situation where we're determining someone else's personality and how they exhibit on like a handful of like occasions that you've been around this person. We may fail to assess a situation by deciding too early a person's characteristics or personality based upon limited stimuli or limited experiences. We also need to find out why someone's acting in a certain way. Could it be the environment they're in? Could it be the position they're in? Basically, perception could be incorrect if we don't have enough information to gather that point. Now, perception is somewhat controlled by a social climate, which is like social conditioning. That could play a role in how we see things too. Like, if you live in America and you're a Republican, you could say, oh, you don't need to pull yourself from your bootstraps. But the Democrats will say, oh, no, it's the environment. It's different perceptions. It doesn't really tell why the person's really poor or impoverished or homeless. It's just the person's perception of what they're going through, and they're deciding why it has to be that way to rationalize in their mind. But making judgments without really having all the information can be prejudice. Now, prejudice defined by the American Psychological Association is basically a negative attitude towards people formed in advance, or like a group or like an individual, and it's usually assumptions. Now, they could be ones we gathered or ones society has placed on us from their collective experiences, and it's kind of like reiterated. So now we have a perception about something that may not even be the truth, but it's because of what we think it is. It is our perception. Either our perception being told to us, or we got our own perception. Perception, even though it does give like an individualistic interpretation, and we be able to process sensory information, it does invite generalizations and biasness, which is why I have this up. Chapter 12. So we're going to jump in right into social cognitive therapy. So social cognitive therapy is basically behavior influenced by the interaction of people and how they think. Social cognitive perception or perspective is basically how our characteristics and our thoughts control our influence in our social interactions or a social situation. So basically our personalities help us exhibit like how to act in a situation based upon the environment that we are. It influences our behavior. It's a process called like reciprocal determinism. So now I kind of want to get into self-efficiency, which basically is like our own viewpoint of how competent we are, if we're able to overcome, if we're able to succeed. It's basically a desire to be a big shot or to how to make a big difference in your community. Social cognitive therapy keeps us aware of like what's acceptable, social rules, standards, ethics, and morals. Basically how we interact with our environment, like how we choose to deal with things kind of shape our personalities moving forward. So basically, whatever situation you place yourself in is basically shaping your personality, and that's how you can act. This goes into like social cognitive therapy. Like we evaluate how so efficient we are by watching the behavior of others. Is why I have this photograph up here where someone may actually look down upon themselves based upon what they see other people doing and how they feel about themselves. People just want to know if they measure up. So basically, in a way, that social cognitive therapy kind of makes us aware of what we can do or our accessibility to overcome and thrive, as well as compare ourselves to other people and situations to see if they can compare and thrive. And it checks us morally on what is acceptable to do and what not to do. So I'm going to get into why I brought this up. Y'all remember him? That's Puff Daddy and Cassie, right? Well, how social conditioning or social cognitive therapy comes into mind is because this person is really worried about their image. Remember, social cognitive therapy also checks our ethics, our moral. Like whatever environment we put in kind of shapes our personalities externally and internally. Especially you put a big, huge like importance on your reputation or your social stature. This man was so worried about his reputation is that he lied until he got caught on hotel staff video saying that he kicked and screamed and beat a woman. And then he decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to make an apology video to save my reputation. Sean Combs was worried about how he measured up based upon his own behavior in these situations and how he caused them issues, by the way. And he used social persuasion. That's what he did. He used social media. He was trying to persuade people, use pictures of his kids. I'm pretty sure while he in jail, he felt like he's not measuring up to shit because he been in there for a while and he been trying to get out. Okay, so we're on our last chapter, dear. And I kind of want to go into psychotherapy versus biomedical therapy. This is an example of biomedical therapy. This is basically pill form. This is when you have I would say like an imbalance. But basically biomedical therapy is like how you prescribe medication and biological treatments to like get rid of, or not get rid of, you can't really get rid of some of them, but like alleviate psychological diseases like depression, like through antidepressants, etc. Biomedical therapy actually was invented millions of years ago when people were doing lobotomies, but that's not very common, I don't think. Then we have psychotherapy, which is basically like you talking to your therapist or using personal growth to make goals, etc. You basically trust your therapist, you build a trustworthy relationship, and you divulge your information, and then they help you along the way. Kind of like talk therapy. Sigmund Freud is all responsible for this. Even though he may have had a lot of pioneers before him, Sigmund Freud is responsible. Him and Joseph Breuer, they actually made a book. The book was studies on hysteria in 1895, but the book was like a way to invent psychotherapy, or it was like the ground of like psychotherapy. They wanted to discuss like a talking cure for nervous disorders, and that's kind of how it was invented. Now psychotherapy uses like the DSM and other qualified medical material to diagnose diseases. This is important to me because my husband has depression. He uses medication, which is basically it's biomedical therapy. He also does psychotherapy as well. What I didn't know is that it took 4 weeks for the medication to work. I didn't know that. So that's something I'm really going to take from this class that was exciting to learn. We come to the end, which I'm sad about, but I will say one thing. The reason why this class has helped me in my business because I'm learning that people will perceive things and it ain't really what they think. Some people need to be on medication and some need to be in therapy. And there is a lot of injustices and indifferences everywhere, but it's because of social conditioning, and we can change this with a train of thought that is completely opposite of what we have now. Our children are our future, and we have to condition them in a positive, pro-social way. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and thank you so much.